Hello everyone, my name is Meghna Singh, and today I will be talking about transportation inequality and health. The Office of the Surgeon General Advisory Board explains that in a synthesis over 148 studies, it finds that social connection increases the likelihood of survival by 50%. But to contextualize the statistic, what it means is that when you lack social connection, it's almost as bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, having 6 alcoholic drinks daily, and increases the likelihood of anxiety, depression, diabetes, hypertension, and many more adverse health effects. But when we look at in our society, who identifies as lonely, we can see that researchers have found in the lowest income decile, or the bottom 10% of earners, 48.7% of individuals identify as lonely, whereas in the top income decile, it's 15.2%. A clear difference. There is a clear correlation showing us that those of lower income are typically more likely to feel lonely. And we can see that considering that in the United States, according to CBS News reported on January 21st, 2026, it elucidates that with growing income disparities and gaps, especially with this year being the highest in three decades, people are struggling to support themselves financially. And so it becomes a matter of public health that we ask today's question. What contributes to loneliness in low-income individuals, and what can be done to remedy such a disparity? Well, we can explore this through first, looking at a defining factor, which will be transportation inequality. Second, we'll look at past solutions, which in our case will be by Zoran Mamdani, which was to completely eliminate bus fares in New York City. Then we'll look at my own solution, which is to automate enrollment process into already offered subsidy programs. Then we'll weigh my solution by looking at the limitations, plausibility, and implications. But first, there are many factors that contribute to why low-income individuals typically feel more lonely than those of high income. But one defining factor is access to transportation, because researchers have explained that transportation is a vital mechanism to connecting people to third spaces, or places where people can foster social connection. So public libraries, parks, and connecting people to cultural events are all important reasons why transportation is very significant when it comes to creating social connections, because it connects people to these places. However, the United States Bureau of Transportation Statistics reports that in 2023, when it came to the bottom 10% of income earners, 36% of after-tax income was spent on transportation alone, a number that is far too high. And we can see that this doesn't just affect the bottom 10% of earners, but the bottom fifth of Americans, meaning that this is a widespread issue. And so let's see what's been done in the past, because we can see that Zoran Mamdani, the current mayor of New York, has actually proposed last year, while he was still running for mayorship, to completely eliminate fares from buses, meaning that if you want to hop on a bus, it is completely free. This is a very ambitious solution and can no doubt have benefit for the people of New York City, because it can mean that financial barriers to transportation can be completely eliminated. But this is a solution that has not yet been implemented. And considering how ambitious it is vital to consider the financial feasibility of such a solution. Samantha Silverberg, policy analyst for the White House, who focuses on transportation and infrastructure rights for Harvard University, that the MTA, the system, the transportation agency that takes control of New York City's transportation, public transportation, such as buses and subways, makes upwards of $600 million a year based off of just tolling and fares. This money is very important because this revenue is used to fund operation costs, people's salaries, pensions, and overtime work, plus it keeps the system running smoothly by funding repairs. And so it seems that it isn't very financially feasible of a solution. But let's look at my solution now, which is to automate enrollment systems into already existing transportation subsidy programs. Because in the United States, 17 out of 50 of the largest transportation companies in the United States already offer a 50% discount on transportation fares, meaning that if you want to take a bus, you can already have a 50% discount if you qualify for government aid programs such as Medicaid and SNAP. However, there is a problem with such a program because the enrollment into such subsidy programs is only 30% right now. We can see that this is because when it comes to enrolling in such a program, it takes a lot of time. The process to enroll requires lengthy forms. Perhaps some of the programs need annual renewability, and you need to submit documentation, proof of income and residency in person and online. And so if you lack internet access, time, or transportation to submit documentation in person, this serves as a barrier to taking advantage of the systems that are already trying to help you. And so my solution is to take inspiration of Philadelphia's Zero Fare program. Right now, what it states is that if you already have applied for government aid programs such as SNAP and Medicare, your system, your data is already taken into government systems, meaning that the government already knows whether or not you are eligible based on your income. And so if you are eligible, you already have automatic access to that 50% discount, and you don't have to fill out any forms. This results in a 63% participation rate for eligible individuals in Philadelphia, nearly double the national average. To detail this solution, what it looks like is using previously collected government data from when people have already applied to government aid programs. Then, these systems will sift through and determine who is the most eligible. Then, it will determine which candidates can be offered this discount program. And they will automatically be notified via text or email that they are eligible for such a discount program. And they don't need to fill out any forms. Now, there are limitations to such a program because when it comes to awareness, just because you have access to such a program doesn't mean you're necessarily going to know about it. Plus, this may decrease revenue for transit agencies and overcrowd things like buses and trains. But this is a plausible solution. For example, it may be tedious for the government, but it is a worthwhile investment because it already uses government data that's already taken in place. Overall, this can be very beneficial to our society, specifically in the United States. If there is cheaper and more accessible transportation, more people will be able to take advantage of it and go to places where social connection can be fostered, and thus they will be able to combat the adverse health effects that come with being socially isolated. That is why using automated programs can be very beneficial to our society. Thank you, and these are my works cited.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, are you ready for the oral defense?
Yes.
There's the bell. Cool. Okay, we will go through a couple oral defense questions and then you'll be done. Just pull up the oral defense questions. Okay. Meghna, how did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process?
Well, initially, my research was going to be about the global perspective, right? How does transportation inequality affect low-income individuals' ability to forge social connection? And this was going to be on a global scale. But throughout my research, I realized that throughout different countries in the world, transportation looks different. For example, in Luxembourg, trams are free. In Hong Kong, Japan, and Singapore, things like the MTR are very cheap and come every couple minutes. But in the US, it looks different. And so I determined that when it comes to creating the best and most nuanced solution, I needed to narrow my research question to just be in one country. And so I chose the United States because that's the most relevant to me in my community.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. And for your last question, how did you use the conclusions or questions of others to advance your own research?
So Samantha Silverberg is a policy analyst who has been working for the White House. She specifically focuses on transportation and infrastructure policy. And she wrote for Harvard University when she analyzed Zoran Mamdani's solution of removing bus fares. she wrote that this may not be a very financially feasible proposal. And I use this to determine that we need a more practical approach, but one that still can serve many different people. And so this helped my own conclusion, because by using her research, I was able to find that the Philadelphia Zero Fare program, which actually had a double the percent of participation rate than the national average. And so this was something that was both feasible, but still had a very strong effect. That was very positive.
Nice, okay. Congratulations.